Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. So this is the light analysis of the fifth round game between Benjamin Bach and Wesley So, taken out of the 2022 Chess.com Rapid Chess Championships. So, we won't be here forever. Appreciate it. Anybody who is coming from the Philippines, I will say Mabuhay and Maligayang Pagdating sa mga chess, ladies and gentlemen. Anybody who is coming from the Netherlands, I will say hello and thank you. I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. But if you guys are ready to go, let's hit it. We got D4. Knight comes to F6. We got C4, E6. Knight coming to C3, and this is inviting the Nimzo Indian. And so that is what Wesley So goes ahead and plays. Bishop to B4, and then we have Queen to C2. And this is the classical variation. You know, white is just trying to stay flexible. Maybe they don't particularly like bishop taking and pawn taking in this position, and they would rather take back with the queen. But the pawn taking C3 is definitely not a problem at all. You kind of want to keep this queen on C2 normally because it is influencing E4. And those of you that play D4, you guys know that E4 pawn push is pretty important. We do see castles by black. We see A3. Bishop takes C3, and then we do see queen taking C3, and black just literally is relentlessly attacking white. Right now they have these two pawns in the center, and you do not want a third to show up at all. So you do want to be trying to, defend against that. So immediately we see D5, super accurate move in this position. We see bishop to G5. As I was telling you guys before, I mean, you are fighting for this E4 square, trying to get some development going. You might have a G3, bishop to G2, trying to influence this square further. And bishop to G5 is trying to undermine the protection of the E4 square. And so black is just saying, I'm just continuing to attack you, bro. So we do see C5 trying to break down what you got going on in the center. So you could take pawn takes C5, you can take pawn takes D5, however you kind of want to go about it, but you kind of have to do something. Or E3 is possible too. Pawn takes C5, we see D4, displacing this queen. And at the moment, white has double pawns, which isn't really that big of a deal. They're in the center of the board at least. So the queen comes over to F3, and we are adding a little bit of pressure onto this knight on F6. So knight B comes to D7. We're just saying, hey, man, you take my knight, I'm taking back with another knight, and you've done nothing. So we do see E3. We got H6. Bishop takes F6. Knight takes F6, like I said before. You've done nothing, white. Nah, I mean, you did a little something, but we do see long castles by white, and this is really nice because it is kind of, it is kind of pinning this pawn here on D4, not really allowing it to do anything. We do see the move E5, and E5 is multi-purposeful. I mean, it is trying to defend this pawn a little bit, but it's also freeing up this bishop to come somewhere on this diagonal. So we do see knight up to E2. And then we do see the move D3. And this is a true pin, even though, black might have the option of capturing here, allowing you to capture here, and then capturing here with check. And then after a piece takes back, a rook taking here. And I mean, you did at least get two pieces for the queen. So it just comes down to, the technique you got. So the knight does come to C3. And bishop comes to G4, which might look kind of nasty because you're like, bruh, I just got like skewered and pinned. And I'm looking bad, but you actually do have a nice Weishenzug move for white, and that is rook takes D3. Like, hey, you attack my queen, I'm attacking your queen, bro. So the queen does come down to A5, and this is all actually known theory. We have seen this before, and we actually see the move queen takes B7. So as you can see, white has been able to kind of slither their way out of the danger zone that they were in. Touch this just a little bit. Okay. But you have to be very careful in these positions just simply because this rook, one of these rooks can come over, and I mean, you are castled queenside. So you kind of got to be, I'm trying to get this little bit. You are looking at some possible attacks on your king. So you definitely need to be careful when you are opening up that side. Any of you guys that play E4 and play against the Sicilian Dragon, you know that this is a super gigantic theme. I think any Sicilians are going to be like this because a lot of the times you castle like in opposite sides. And I mean, you open this B file and literally you're pretty much dead. So you don't want to do that. But this is the novelty of the game, queen takes B7. We got rook a to b8. Queen goes down to c6. We see the move e4, which, I mean, white was trying to move the rook anyway. So rook does come up to d6. And, I mean, you know, everything is really everything in this position. I mean, you know, no side really has, like, you know, a serious advantage. But I mean, Benjamin is like basically defending this position fairly well. And you're doing, you know, you're doing pretty good here. So the rook does come down to b3. Very clear intention. You're saying, hey, man, I'm a rook sacrifice. And I mean, in these types of positions where you are open on the B file, I mean, you can definitely see this. You guys, like I said, that play against the Sicilian, you do see that a lot, especially in the Dragons with the C file being completely open. The king does come up to C2. You know, C1 is just a really, really dangerous square to be on. You know, if the rook does take here, the queen is going to be taking either here or here. The rook is going to be swinging over, so you're not looking too great. So the rook does take c3. You take with the pawn because, of course, that's the only way. I mean, you have definitely gotten a little bit for giving up the exchange. So you have tripled white's pawns, even though white is up 3 entire pawns in this position. So the rook does come over to b8. We have reached a point in the game that if you do want to pause the video, Benjamin Bach in this particular position is completely winning. But finding the move is actually, I think, pretty challenging. So if you do want to pause the video and try and guess what like killer move white has in this position, go ahead and do so. Okay. So, I mean, I think a lot of you guys are thinking like, okay, you know, you got this little piece here. This bishop actually kind of has the ability to kind of come in and infiltrate. You know, this rook is coming in and stuff like that. This queen is attacking this pawn. So you're kind of like, man, what can I do to try to prevent things from going on? Well, you know, white actually has a way to pretty much defend everything. Right now, I mean, the really huge threat is the queen taking here. So you kind of have to prevent that. But, I mean, you can't do it with the king. The king is cut off completely, which is what you want to do when you have a rook. But the move in this position is actually a4. It might kind of seem interesting, like, why am I just pushing this pawn? But think about it, like this pawn literally going to this square just solves everything. The queen literally is stalemated. You don't have anywhere for the queen to go. I mean, the queen can't take, it can't go here, it can't go here, it can't go here. You can't move it literally anywhere. So the queen is just completely 100% stuck. So, I mean, you're forced to have to try to do a counterattack, rook to c8, and then the queen coming down to b5. Like I said before, you know, white is up 3 entire pawns in this position. So you're going to be giving it back probably with, you know, rook takes c5. But after queen takes and then the rook takes, you know, moving king up here. I mean, you're actually doing, you know, pretty okay. Probably not the move because bishop to g1 is going to be kind of crazy. But you see what I'm saying. You know, taking, you know, you're going to be up a couple of pawns at least, you know. So in the game after we saw rook to b8, we actually saw queen to a6, which it really does seem like this move kind of solves all those problems. It's like, all right, I'm defending this pawn here. Like, you know, you still can't go anywhere with your queen. Like, I'm good. You're not infiltrating anywhere. But the problem is black actually has a way to sacrifice a piece to just completely open your king up. And it's really nasty. Bishop coming down to d1 with check is ugly. And it is beautiful. It's beautifully timed because, I mean, this rook cannot take here. You really don't want to take with the king. I mean, you're really in like a Zugzwang situation. Like, you don't really want to go anywhere, right? But you have to do something. So the king taking d1 is going to be the absolute best move. But this does allow queen taking c3. And, I mean, you're looking at some nasties right here. I mean, this rook is coming down to b1. And you're going to be moving up. And then rook to e1 is going to be checkmate. Or even queen to e1 is going to be checkmate. So you're literally getting checkmate so many different ways. And so the only thing that you can do in this position that makes any sense at all, which it really sucks, is queen down to b5. You have to block this check. And so this is very unfortunate. So you're going to be down some material. But, I mean, it's not like black is completely winning the game. But, I mean, it's pretty decisive what's going on. Rook takes b5, pawn takes b5, and then the queen takes on c5. And I mean, you know, so Benjamin starts to, like, he pretty much is playing the way you're supposed to play. But the problem with these types of positions is they're so imbalanced. And I mean, the queen can be so powerful in these open positions that, I mean, you do normally start to misplay. And a major problem that white has, that Wesley So recognized, is that they're literally not using this bishop or in this rook. The bishop and rook literally never move the entire game. So it's almost like you're playing this knight and this queen against just a rook by itself. Unless you can unravel your pieces. So The rook comes up to d8 with check. The king goes down to h7. We see h3, just keeping this knight out of the kitchen a little bit. The knight does come to d5. You see bishop to e2. Knight comes to c3 with check, which, I mean, doesn't look like super duper crazy because, I mean, you have this rook here. It looks like you're going to step up like so, king to d2, and you're going to, like, your pieces are out, right? Well, not super quite. The queen takes on a3. We see rook over to c1, but unfortunately, that allows knight takes e2. And what do you do? Because you really don't want to take here because that is going to be dropping your rook. And you are going to be playing a queen versus a rook. And that's not a really great game to be playing. Plus, black has basically won all of their pawns back in this process. So that is just completely losing. So the rook c comes to c8. We see queen down to a2 with check. King goes down to e1. You got knight down to g1. And you are doing, like, I mean, you're still completely losing. But, I mean, if you move rook down to d2, you at least attack the queen, and you are kind of defending yourself. But under no circumstances go king to f1 because that's just mating. But that is what Benjamin Bach does. He goes king to f1. And, I mean, you are just in a completely mating box. So after we see king to f1, we see queen down to a1 with check. And it is in this position that Benjamin Bach does resign the game. And I mean, because this queen is holding this knight and you cannot escape to this square. And I mean, pick a rook. I mean, you can either throw this one away and get checkmated immediately, or you can stall it out for one more move and move rook to c1. Takes, rook to d1 takes, checkmate. However you want to do it. But that is all she wrote. So, I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. Thank you. Thank you. And maraming salamat, aking makaibigan. And I will see everybody next time.